Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 17th, 2021 City of Portsmouth Planning Board meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone to City Chambers, and I have to say I've never seen this board so happy to be here as they are tonight. We've all been let out of prison, so welcome. So first item of business is approval of minutes. If I could have a motion to approve the board minutes from the May 20th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. God, I love that. Okay, item 2, public hearing, old business. I just read this into the record. The board's action in these matters has been deemed quasi-judicial in nature. If any person believes any member of the board has a conflict of interest, that issue should be raised at this point, or it will be deemed wavered. Okay, item 2, public hearing, old business. Item A, request of Stone Creek Realty LLC owner and CPI Management LLC applicant for property located at 53 Green Street. If I could have a motion to postpone this application to the July Planning Board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item B, request of Barara LLC owner and 210 Commerce Way LLC applicant for property located at Sherwood Drive at the intersection of Portsmouth Boulevard and Market Street. If I could have a motion to postpone this application to the July Planning Board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 2, public hearing, new business. Item A, request of City of Portsmouth, New Hampshire owner for property located at 99 Pierce Island Road for site plan review approval for the demolition of the existing bathhouse and pump house buildings and construction of a new bathhouse and a new chemical storage building. Said property is shown in Assessor's Map 208, Lot 1, and lies within the municipal district. Who is here to speak for this application?
Good evening, Chairman Legg, members of the board. Very nice to see you all in person. My name is Joseph Almeida. I'm the facilities manager for the City of Portsmouth. Joining me tonight, Peter Rice, the Director of Public Works, Todd Henley, the Director of the Rec Department, and from Oak Point and Associates, Ken Weston and Wade Lippert. I'm going to make a very quick introduction and very promptly turn it over to Oak Point. But we're here tonight presenting a very important project to the city. We consider this a legacy project. It's a huge asset to the city to have such an amazing facility on Pierce Island. We have almost a 1 million gallon public pool, and it is truly a very rare asset for us to have. So we're looking to construct a new pool house, which will last us well into 50, 75-year range. The facility that's there now has obviously served us very well, but it is a very tired facility, and the aquatic system and how we treat the water must be improved. So, and keep in mind that the goal of the project is to keep the pool remaining open throughout the duration of construction, and that's no small task. We have a full presentation for you tonight, and I will leave all of the technical presentation to Oak Point. But know that we have presented this project to, we were just trying to remember the date, but we did have a public presentation. I believe it was a Zoom meeting, if you remember those. And then we presented to the Rec Board and the Pierce Island Committee. So we're gradually rolling this out. It's a very exciting project, and thus far we've been great enthusiasm has met the project. So with that, I'll turn it over immediately to Oak Point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ken Weston. I'm an architect and project manager with Oak Point. I'll just give you a quick summary of the project. And Wade is here. He's a civil engineer to fill you in on the technical details. So we are proposing to demolish the existing bathhouse, that's approximately 2,700 square feet, and the existing pump house, which is about 544 square feet, and replace those with the new facility, a combined facility. The new bathhouse is approximately 3,340 square feet. There is a portion of that, an underground equipment room, or a pump well, if you will, that's approximately 775 square feet. The new facility will have staff space, toilet rooms, changing area, and storage. It's located on the eastern side of the pool. It will also have a filter room with equipment, aquatics equipment to operate the pool, and as I said, a pump well for the pumps. Adjacent to the facility is a chemical storage building that's approximately 280 square feet. As far as the pool goes, we are doing some pool repair. We're repairing the entire gutter. We're repairing the main drains. We're replacing the pool liner, and we're improving the accessibility with a small section of zero-depth entry. In order to accomplish that work, we do have to replace the pool deck in its entirety. Any questions?
Questions for the applicant?
When is construction
Excuse me.
scheduled?
You know, our policy on this board is to be recognized by the board before asking.
Excuse
And
me.
the reason I ask that.
I'm too used to Zoom, I'm sorry.
I know. So we're all learning again. But it just makes the meeting more efficient and effective. So go ahead and ask your question.
What's the proposed schedule for construction?
We are targeting September for bid documents to be available to contractors. So right around the time that the pool closes, start construction. That's the plan.
Mr. Clark, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Couple of questions. I see on the plans that you guys, on sheet CS 101, the site plan, you guys call out the use of, topsoil, seed, and fertilizer. Given the presence of, kids and I know myself, I guess, and others laying on the grass around the pool, did you guys look into any organic or basically not using the fertilizer out there? I didn't know if that was considered at all.
We didn't, but it's a great suggestion, and I will definitely do that.
Okay, thank you. And then follow-up question. I see the sidewalk on that same plan. Looks like it's your generic, either, I believe it's a 6-foot sidewalk. It's hard to tell. Was there any consideration to bikes coming into the facility? I know that the current pool house gets a lot of bike traffic, both children and adults. So curious to see, what you guys thought about basically pedestrian and bike traffic coming into the site. I know, particularly when everything's up and running, people coming down Pierce Island Road, going down to the dog park and stuff, that S-turn can get pretty tight. So just curious, any thoughts on widening that sidewalk to allow more bike and pedestrian access?
I will let Wade speak to that. We are tying into an existing sidewalk system, so that's why it's a pretty standard sidewalk. And we do indicate a bike rack. It's keynote 18 on CS 101. So we did talk a little bit about the bikes. I had not considered widening the sidewalk in that area for sidewalks and for pedestrians and bicycles. But that's also a good suggestion. Wade, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yes, I'm Wade Lippert, the project civil engineer. And as far as the bike lane, it's something that, ideally with a bike lane, we would want to have it separated from a walkway. That, we'd want to have a striped bike lane, coming onto the island and coming that entire length of the roadway up to the pool that would be in the same direction as the direction of travel for the vehicles. As far as a widened sidewalk, we haven't looked at the entire island comprehensively as part of this project. We're really looking at just the improvements right in the vicinity of the pool.
Yep.
We are providing an improvement right now. That existing walkway ends just prior to the existing pool house, and at that point, pedestrian traffic really is just dumped out into the road. If anybody wants to continue walking down Pierce Island Road, they're in the traffic lane. So we're providing that sidewalk to protect that pedestrian traffic, going down the rest of the, to the new pool house and further down to the
Yep.
rest of the island. The other challenge we're sort of looking at is we're trying to minimize our disturbance out there on the site. We're redeveloping the existing site. We're trying not to create any additional impervious surfaces. We're actually reducing the impervious surfaces within the tidal buffer zone on both the north and the south end of the island. By approximately 3,800 square feet, we're reducing that square footage. So by widening that sidewalk or widening the road, we would actually be increasing, the impervious surfaces in that area and potentially would have other stormwater and permitting ramifications.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Peter?
Peter Rice, Director of Public Works. In addition, the removal of the building will help with the site distance or the visibility of bicyclists. The speeds along this roadway are appropriate for sharrows. So, we would plan on putting sharrows in this area as well and additional signage to be, make people aware of
Okay.
bicycle traffic. So it's a really good point because you're right, there is quite a bit of bicycle activity. But for the reasons that Wade had indicated, it really, we feel the accommodations are going to be significantly improved, as well as the sidewalk access is going to be a much safer pedestrian way to get there.
Okay, thanks.
I think this is a Peter question. I know it's not related to the pool itself, but the bridge, I know you guys have been looking at bridge improvements. The chain and pillars that have narrowed the sidewalk over the bridge, is that going to be changed as a part of any of this?
No. At this point, the plan is to leave the chain along that section. We feel that it's significantly improved pedestrian safety because it keeps pedestrians in the sidewalk. There's a tendency historically for people to spill out onto the street as they're walking over the bridge, and we feel that this is a safer accommodation for the pedestrians. Yes, it is a relatively narrow sidewalk, but what we anticipate when we have the new bridge built, which is going to be a number of years out, we will address that and make it a wider sidewalk at that time.
That would help a lot because right now it's very constrained.
It is. If you have a double stroller and somebody walking through, it becomes a challenge.
Or a wheelchair.
Yep, or a wheelchair, yep.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Moreau? Thank you, Peter.
I have a question regarding the fact that, and I love the project, don't get me wrong, but you are taking away several parking spots. So I'm just curious if you're able to fit those in otherwhere or they're just gone, and whether or not that will be an issue.
Correct, yeah. Where we're siting the building, it is on the west side of that existing parking lot. And there's going to be 10 parking spaces that are being removed as part of this project. However, as part of the wastewater treatment project, the parking lot at Fort Tree Island was actually expanded by 30 parking spaces. So when you take that into account, there's actually, it would be a net increase of 20 spaces versus the last time this parking lot was completely available for use with the pool.
Great, thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Ms. Engel?
I have a question about the concrete apron around the pool. Will that be white or something that, I know it's been many years since I took my kids to that pool, but it used to get piping hot and then they'd run and then they're not allowed to run and it was, I don't know what your choice of material is, but if you could bear that in mind.
That's something that we're definitely still evaluating. We would definitely like to have something that's more attractive than just that white concrete surface. That there's other surfaces that are possible that we might be able to put out
Not
there.
attractive, but for the feet, just.
Yeah, and then, and it's sort of budget, it's budget, pending to do those other type of surfaces, but it's something we definitely, as we finalize those details of construction, that's something that we would definitely, we want to evaluate
Keep in
further.
mind, okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, gentlemen. Seeing none, I'll open it up to public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to, for, or against this application, please come to the podium, or if you're on Zoom, raise your virtual hand. Nothing on Zoom? Second-time speakers? Third-time speakers? Seeing no one rise and no virtual hands, I will close the public hearing. If I could have a motion to grant site plan review approval as presented.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion that we vote to grant the site plan approval as presented.
I'll second that and add an amendment, Ms. Moroff.
Feel free,
Which,
go right
or
ahead.
condition rather, to the, switch to the organic fertilizer.
I agree.
Discussion? Ms. Murray, you want to quickly speak to your motion?
I'd like to say that this is a great project. Sorry, I was writing something down.
I know.
I think this is a really great project. I was really looking at all the details of the setup inside, and I think it makes a lot of logical sense. Not that I myself have ever used the facility, but I know that many people here in Portsmouth do, and I think that this will be a great addition and make it much more comfortable. The outdoor showers, just everything is going to be expanded and loved there. And I was happy to see it. There's more toilets in the women's bathroom than the men's.
Other comments? I'll call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Looking forward to it. Item B, request of Andrew M. Harvey, owner, for property located at 710 Middle Road, for conditional use permit approval in accordance with Section 10.814 of the zoning ordinance, for the construction of a detached accessory dwelling unit of 749 square feet gross floor area, to be located above a newly constructed detached garage and utility room. Said property is shown in Assessor's Map 232, Lot 46, and lies within the Single Residence B District. Who is here to speak for this application?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Bernie Peelich, attorney from Bozen and Associates. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Andrew Harvey, who is here along with his parents and the project engineer, Eric Poulin from Jones and Beach. Before the meeting began, I passed out a little biography that Andrew did documenting his long history in Portsmouth and the fact that he didn't mention, but he's the third generation Harvey dentist down on Islington Street. In any event, Andrew purchased 710 Middle Road back in 2019. He presently lives there. It is a single-family residence. It's on 20,409 square feet, just short of a half an acre. And there is about a 120-year-old home that's a 2.5-story single-family residence. Beautiful, nice old home. What Andrew proposes to do is to construct behind this home a 4-car garage with an ADU above it, also having a first floor utility and laundry room. He also would have on the second floor a workshop. He likes to do things, and a workshop would be a big benefit to him. The proposed ADU would be a kitchen, bath, 1-bedroom, living room, and it would be 749 square feet. As Andrew relates in the handout I gave you, this entire structure was designed to be in complete compliance with the provisions of the zoning ordinance as to a detached accessory dwelling unit. It meets all the requirements of the zoning ordinance, meets the lot coverage and open space requirements, all the parking requirements, and obviously the single-family residence on the lot is also one of the criteria. It will meet the height requirements. Going through the criteria, which I've done in the applicant's narrative, 10.814.10 says that you can only have a detached ADU on a lot that has a single-family dwelling, so we comply in that respect. 814.20 says you have to conform to all zoning regulations, which this does. It complies with lot area, setbacks, open space, lot coverage, off-street parking, and building height. That's 21. 23 says it has to meet all setbacks, which it does. 31 says have to be owned by the same person, who is Andrew, and will be owned by the same person. 32 says has to be occupied, one of the units has to be occupied by the owner, which he intends to occupy one of the units forevermore. He doesn't intend to use the structure for any business purposes. The DADU complies with the minimum lot area required for the SRB zone. It has only one bedroom, which is required, and less than 750 square feet, which is a requirement. The facade of the DADU is less than 40% of the combined facade of the accessory dwelling unit in the single-family residence. The height is less than the single-family residence. As you can see from the plans, and there have been great plans submitted, architectural elevations, floor plans, as well as a site plan. The two structures are intended to be architecturally consistent. There is more than 20 feet between the single-family residence and the proposed accessory dwelling unit, and the front wall of the accessory dwelling unit is set back behind the entire single-family dwelling, so it'll be hardly noticeable at all from the street. And obviously, no part of the proposed accessory dwelling unit is within the front yard setback. So, with foresight, this structure was designed to comply with all the requirements of Section 10.814 and does, which I think makes my job easy and hopefully makes your job easy also. The board has to make findings which are set forth at 814.60 that this does meet all of the requirements. I don't think that there's any question. If you do have any technical questions regarding the plans, Eric Poulin from Jones and Beach is here. And if you have any questions from Andrew Harvey, he's here, and he'd be happy to answer them for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Pulich or the applicant? Mr. Clark.
Thank you. I have a technical question regarding the response letter and building coverage table that's shown.
Regarding what?
I'm sorry, the response letter, the June 3rd response letter from Jones and Beach. And my question is on the building coverage table. It shows existing condition main structure 1,875 square feet, proposed condition 1,680 square feet. So I couldn't see on the plan where that 200 square feet is going. I didn't see anything being demoed, but I could be wrong on that.
Eric?
Good evening, Eric Poulin from Jones and Beach Engineers. So the one structure that is being removed, which is depicted on the boundary plan that was supplied to us by Jim Vera, there's a small shed currently on the property. That is located in close proximity to, if we're looking at the page, the bottom left corner of the proposed structure. That structure is being proposed to be removed. So looking at the table, main structure shows the existing footprint of the existing building, the proposed footprint of the proposed building. The attached decks and sheds are also noted, and the one part of building footprint that is being removed is that shed, which is a credit we take with that footprint of building no longer being there, which brings us to a building coverage percentage of 19.9%.
Okay, because on the table, you include that shed being removed, but it's not being taken into account as part of the main structure. The way I tally it up, it just doesn't seem to equate to me, because in that same table, under existing conditions, you have that main structure of 1,875 square feet. Then you also include the shed to be removed in that table, 254 square feet. But then under the proposed condition, you're not including the shed, but you're also taking off roughly 200 square feet from the main structure. So I didn't do all the math to tally everything up, but it seems like something's being double counted.
Yeah, so just to walk through this, so we're looking at the main structure that's existing. There's an enclosed porch, which I also add on to the footprint of the existing conditions. The shed is removed, and then we have a total existing to remain of 2107, including the enclosed porch and the main structure. That gets us to 2107, and the proposed condition of the main structure being 1680, and then the deck and stairs on the back of the proposed structure is 266. So that then gets us to 1946. 1946 and 2107 will then comprise the total footprint for the proposed condition, including the existing building of 4053.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So the proposed
Yeah.
condition is the new structure?
Yep.
Yes.
Not the total.
Okay.
It's a bit
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah, my apologies. My attempt on this was to.
Well, no, I just figured it out like 3 seconds
me
ago.
too.
Yeah, as soon as you said the new building, that's when it clicked. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's the new math.
Are there questions for the applicant, Ms. Moreau?
Back on that same plan, if I could just, out of sheer curiosity, it says that the barn is being removed that's on the adjacent property that's going to be very close to this building. Is that barn currently standing, or has it been removed?
It's currently standing. It's on Jim and Liza's property. You're talking about it's the
You,
foundation.
you should get up to the podium.
Yeah, if you could just,
I mean, they can talk.
We can't hear you.
we can't hear you. If you could come up to the podium and introduce yourself and just respond, please.
So I did not add that. That was put in by Jim Vera. I believe that the Hewitts had a meeting several years ago.
Andrew, could you just introduce yourself? Just
Oh,
for the
I'm
record?
sorry.
That's
My-
okay.
My name's Andrew Harvey. I'm the property owner of 710
Great,
Middle Road.
thank you.
I'm the one applying for the permit. I believe that Jim and Liza applied in the past to try to have that barn rebuilt, and I believe that that permit was denied. I don't have the access to those, or I don't remember the exact dates of those, but it's on there as being removed for that reason. I didn't put it there, and it's by Jim Vera who put that in. I believe he surveyed the neighboring properties, so that might be from his old records.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for the applicants? Mr. Pizzullo?
Yeah, I have several questions or comments on the utilities that are going to be serving the new building. The first one would be the sewer connection lateral. Just to requirements for the city would be a minimum 6-inch diameter PVC pipe. You show a 4-inch, I believe.
Okay, yep.
That was one comment. The other comment is to serve that building for water, we only allow, the water department and the city only allows one metered water service. So the water service would have to come off the existing house.
Okay.
And if you wanted to sub-meter it, that's, your decision. We don't allow 2 meters on the same lot.
Yep.
For the same property ownership.
Yeah, as a part of our process for the construction, I wanted to definitely reiterate that we would definitely be coordinating with all municipal departments on each one of those utilities prior to construction, and as well as coordinating for the proposed. We always have the contractor, as one of our notes, it's note 24, we always have our contractors verify all the existing utilities that we're tying into on site, as well as coordinating with all the municipal departments, so we make sure we get the design right. So I did a preliminary layout of the utilities up that easterly side of the existing house to see if we had the appropriate room to get those in. But it's definitely, the condition would be
Right.
coordination.
Yeah, just a heads up too on that, on the water service, the minimum right now is a 1-inch diameter pipe. So I don't know what the existing house, now my guess is that it doesn't have that size pipe service line.
Yep.
So you may have to upgrade that. So I just want to give you a heads up on a couple of those things.
Yep, absolutely. We would be more than willing to upgrade to the city requirement for the 1-inch.
Okay, and one other comment I did have, I don't know if that's something we can look at, is was there any thought to do any mitigation for additional runoff or stormwater for drainage for the structure, since it's quite a large structure, and impervious surface from the roof runoff, even simple foundation drain along the perimeter of the building. I don't believe there's a basement here either, so.
Yeah, we did consider for the scope of this project, given its size, we felt that given this being an ADU unit on a single residential property, that we didn't go down that avenue. One reason for not doing that is the lack of proximity to wetlands. We did have Gove Environmental Services go out and do a survey of the potential of wetlands in this area. There weren't found to be any. I know on the city's GIS system, the nearest wetlands that are logged on there are 600 to 700 feet away. So the slopes in this area are pretty gradual. So there's a long buffer of woodland area to the rear of this property that water would be flowing through at a very comfortable slope, which would help mitigate some of that additional impervious prior to hitting the wetland. But that is something we can look into. I know we've done infiltration gravel drip edges in the past.
That's really what I'm talking about, yeah.
That's something that we can do. It's not a major change, and it's something that can be integrated pretty quickly. You do a couple foot drip edge, a couple feet of gravel with a perforated pipe on the bottom, and those do a lot for something of this size.
Right, because we have had some issues where, even single-family residences have caused issues with runoff going onto neighboring properties. So you're supposed to really contain it on your property. I think that would go a long way to contain it on this property, if you did something like that.
Yep. That's definitely something that we can do. Another thing I'd like to point out is the small driveway that we're proposing to connect. It's designed in a way to tip back into itself for a short while and then drain south. We didn't want to sheet flow water across the existing driveway. So that was one thing that we tried to do to make sure that rainwater, stormwater wouldn't leave the site and stayed on our property and head south. But I think that the gravel drip edge is a great idea, and I think that's something that we can definitely do.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Other questions, Mr. Chelman?
I'm not sure if it's a question for you or for Juliet. Just kind of curious. The plan that Jim Vera stamped is called a monumentation sketch, and he says it's not for submittal to a regulatory agency.
Yeah, it is a boundary sketch. Our field survey, our survey department did go out here and do some as-built information. We did do some checks, and we know Jim Vera. I spoke with Jim, and we felt very confident in the boundary footprint that he's provided for us, following our survey department going out there and confirming it. All those monuments have been located, so we felt very confident in the footprint that we've come before the board with.
I get the distances between the monuments and all that being good. I'm just curious where he called it a sketch, or if you've done what you consider to be adequate for a survey. I noticed there's an engineering stamp on the final plan, not a survey stamp. Is that fine? Is that normal, Julia?
Yeah, we don't actually require surveyed plans as
Okay.
part of our submissions. It's this is actually much higher level than we typically would receive, so we're actually thankful that they made that attempt to be as
Okay. That
close to
answers the
survey
question.
as possible.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Other questions for the applicant? Thank you, gentlemen. I'll open it up to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to, for, or against this application, please come to the podium, or on Zoom, raise your virtual hand.
Nobody on Zoom.
Just please state your name and address, please, for the record.
Yes. Chairman Legg and members of the Planning Board, my name is Liza Hewitt, and I live at 726 Middle Road in Portsmouth, and I'm the next-door neighbor of the applicant, Andrew Harvey. I have a letter here. I apologize that I did not get it to you ahead of time, but the applicant did not choose to share his plan with us ahead, and I only saw it Friday night as we were unfortunately heading out of town on vacation. So can I
Sure, just
refer it to one
give it
side?
to Mr. Harris, and he'll pass it along. Thank you.
The request before you is for a detached accessory dwelling unit. I would argue this is a request for a 4,000 square foot, 2.5-story warehouse that also has a 750 square foot, one-bedroom apartment. This proposal is too big, too offensive, too contrary to the spirit of the ADU ordinance, and too out of character with the neighborhood, and therefore should be denied. I have concerns about this ADU for which Andrew is seeking a CUP. First, the size of the structure. ADU criteria states that the DADU shall be clearly subordinate to the principal single-family home in scale, height, and appearance. This ADU does not meet that criteria. I would argue that this proposal is totally contrary to the spirit of the ADU ordinance, which was to provide in-law apartments and additional apartment housing stock for Portsmouth. In this case, they have taken the rules and created the maximum size structure allowed that will be used primarily for storage. The applicant is maxing out the size of this structure to fit within the zoning, but consequently, it is not subordinate to the existing house. The building meets lot coverage requirement within 0.1%, obviously not clearly subordinate. The height of this structure is 5 inches shorter than the home, obviously not clearly subordinate. The footprint of the ADU structure is 1,680 square feet. The footprint of the main home is 1,875 square feet, obviously not clearly subordinate. As can be seen on the plans, the structure is as big as most homes in the neighborhood. The second floor alone of this 2.5-story ADU is 1,460 square feet. My home next door on 2 floors, 3 bedrooms, and 2.5 baths is only 1,649 square feet total. Further, why would an ADU need 1,629 square feet of storage space on the 3rd floor? The addition of the 3-car garage, they're calling a 4-car garage, I only saw 3 and another room on the 1st floor, for a total of 5 garages plus maybe another one on this property speaks to the massive size. The current 2-car garage is not used by the applicant or his roommates for parking, except in a winter parking ban. Otherwise, most of the cars are parked on the street. A 3-car garage for a 1-bedroom ADU is excessive. Only 19% of this structure will be used for the ADU. The other 81% will be used for warehouse and other uses. The last page of your planning board packet is a listing of currently approved AADUs and DADUs. I challenge you to find a single approved DADU of this size. My second concern relates to the ADU criteria, which states that the 2 structures are intended to be architecturally consistent. This ADU in size and design is not consistent with the neighborhood. I would argue that a 3-car garage with a warehouse on top is not architecturally consistent with the 1900s New Englander home. No homes in this neighborhood have a second structure of this size on their property. There are only a couple of homes with even a single-story 1- or 2-car detached garage on this end of Middle Road. I would also remind you that in 2019, Mr. J. McSherry applied to the ZBA for approval of a building this size in the back of his home at 871 Middle Road, which was denied and found to be not in keeping with the neighborhood. It should be noted that in the planning department's comments packet, they said that, and I quote, "The size of the garage is not typical for the neighborhood," end quote. The third concern, the ADU criteria states that the proposed DADU has 1 bedroom and is less than 750 square feet. This ADU has a 367 square foot laundry room. This laundry room will need to be heated and is attached to the unit by a staircase. Heated space is living space. In any home, your laundry room is counted in your home's square footage. Thus, when this space is added, the total ADU square footage is 1,116 square feet, not 750 square feet. Finally, impact on abutting property. Unfortunately, the way this building has been planned will both negatively impact our property values as next-door neighbors, as well as affect our quality of life as next-door neighbors. Its overwhelming size suggests possible future expansion. The additional large room on the second floor is of concern because as it is described in one place as a workshop, in another, the same room is described as, quote, to be used for the benefit of the property as a whole. It has a bathroom and could thus be used for a number of purposes, including parties. While the applicant states that it will not be used for business, how will the city know if storage space is being rented and used by those other than the owner, since there is 4,000 square feet of storage space in this ADU? I would like to clear up an error on the plans which were presented to you and which Mr. Harvey spoke on. These plans show an existing barn on our property which does not exist. Does not exist. There is an old stone foundation in the back of the property which is below grade and cannot be seen from either of the properties. In closing, there is nothing accessory about this project. This ADU request is the shell for an apparent warehouse, an apartment with 4,000 square feet of storage space. This building is not subordinate to the single-family dwelling in any way, and its overwhelming size suggests possible future expansion. The applicant has maxed out the size of this monstrosity to within inches of the ADU zoning regulations. The size of the ADU unit itself, when it includes the laundry room, is questionable since it increases the ADU to 1,116 square feet. This building, as proposed, in no way fits the neighborhood in size or architectural integrity. I would support an ADU in the spirit in which the ordinance was intended, but this is not it. This proposal is too big, too offensive, too contrary to the spirit of the ADU ordinance, and too out of character with the neighborhood, and therefore should be denied. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Other first-time speakers? Could you do 3 minutes? I just remind people that the first-time speakers are 3 minutes, and we let you go over, but we're going to hold the 3 minutes, and we have second and third rounds.
Good evening, Chairman Legg. My name is Jim Hewitt, and I live at 726 Middle Road. And like my wife said, we're a little bit discombobulated here. We just saw the plans on Friday, had to drive home from vacation, so I have some handouts I'd like to present, if that's
Sure.
okay.
If you give this, Mr. Harris will pass them down. No, I'd rather not, because your 3 minutes is ticking.
It's just that they're overlaid, so they're like crossways.
Ms. Walker will help. Thank you.
Let's see what's in there.
You got it?
Go ahead.
All right. I'll explain the handouts in that I've coordinated them with 1, 2, and 3 on the covers here, and that corresponds to the plan. You'll see that it's 1, 2 on the front plan here. Does everyone have that information? Okay.
We do.
All right, so to start with, on issue number 1 is the applicant's narrative. If you turn to page 2, you will see section, I've highlighted it, 10.814.55. The proposed DADU front wall will be entirely behind the single-family dwelling. So if you go to the plan, I have cross-hatched the area where that's allowed. And you'll see the proposed building is not entirely behind the front of the house. So it appears that that location is not compliance with the DADU regulations. Item number 2 on the handout, which is keyed to issue number 2 on the plan, relates to the
right-of-way easement and whether this use is allowed under the easement that was granted from Ellenham to Fredham back in 1912. If you go to page 3 of handout number 2, I've highlighted the language. Is that 3?
It is 3, but stay there because there's no other first-round speakers. Then you can just continue, okay? So just a second. Any other first-time speakers? Anyone on Zoom?
No.
Mr. Hewitt, this is your lucky day. Now you have 10 minutes in the second round.
Okay, great. Okay, so back to page 3 on handout number 2, I've highlighted the key issue about Fredham and Ellenham's responsibilities with the driveway and the easement. And it states right there that Fredham, which is now me, is responsible to keep and maintain the right-of-way 50 feet south of that area I've marked on the plan. So I'm responsible for all the pavement and the maintenance on the driveway 50 feet south. So I did not authorize any new pavement, which I crosshatched in that area number 2. I also didn't authorize the new wear and tear on the driveway from this project. So those are 2 issues that I believe need to be resolved on this project. And lastly, I've given you some pictures that show how this will affect our property from our backyard. And they are arranged in the same order that I have on the plan. So picture number 1 is the first view. Picture number 2 is facing the applicant's yard. And picture number 3 is from our back steps. And you can see how it's quite impactful to our property, and is, like my wife said in her summary, too much, too big, too out of character, should be denied. So I'm available for questions.
Questions aren't part of the public hearing process. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other second-time speakers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would point out that Mr. Hewitt has misconstrued and misquoted you. Section 10.814.55 says, and I'm reading directly from the ordinance, the DADU, or the front wall of the DADU, shall be set back at least 10 feet further from the front lot line than the existing front wall of the single-family dwelling. All that says is that the front wall of the detached accessory dwelling unit has to be 10 feet further back from the front lot line, or the street in this case, than the front wall of the single-family dwelling. And as I stated in the applicant's narrative, the proposed accessory dwelling unit front wall is set back behind the entire single-family dwelling. It's not only 10 feet further back than the front wall of the accessory dwelling unit, of the single-family dwelling, it's behind the entire, more than 20 feet behind the entire accessory dwelling. So it clearly complies with 10.814.55. It complies with all of the requirements of the zoning ordinance. The spirit and intent, as cited by Mrs. Hewitt, is set forth in the zoning ordinance and in the requirements of the zoning ordinance. This structure complies with each and every requirement of the zoning ordinance. This structure complies with all of the requirements of the detached accessory dwelling unit portion of the zoning ordinance. They may not like what it contains for garage. He may be an antique car collector, but a four-car garage is allowed. It meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance. It meets all the setbacks. Who is this board to say that he can't have a four-car garage? Likewise, with regard to the shared right-of-way, and I emphasize the word shared, both Mr. Harvey and the Hewitts have a right to use that, even though Mr. Hewitt is to maintain it. That goes back to the early 1900 deeds, and that's not within the purview of this board as to whether or not it is a violation or an overuse of the shared right-of-way. That is for the courts to decide. So, although they may not like the way it looks, although they may think it's out of character with the neighborhood, it complies with the zoning ordinance and it complies with the criteria for a detached accessory dwelling unit. 10.814.60 says that you have to determine whether or not it meets the criteria. I haven't heard anything from anybody that it doesn't meet the criteria. Thank you.
Thank you. Other second-time speakers? Third-time speakers? Seeing no one rise and seeing no hands on Zoom, I will close the public hearing. So what is the wish of the board?
Can I ask
Yes,
a question
yes, Ms.
first?
Moreau, you can.
Playing Director Juliet Walker, if you could remind me, I know it's been a while since we've looked at one of these, and it's listed on the plan as common space for the laundry room, and I don't believe we count common space because that means it's common to both units, that both units can use it. Is that correct?
Correct. But this is kind of unique because it's not, it's
Yeah,
common
but you're-
space that's not connected to another unit.
But you're on,
Right.
you're onto something.
So it's a little unusual. I certainly would recommend the board think hard about that.
Yeah, right, because it is only attached to that.
So if you want to make a motion, Beth, then we can have a discussion.
Sure, I would be happy to make a motion that we vote to find the application meets the requirements of section 10.814.60 and grant the conditional use permit as presented with the included stipulation and adding that a gravel drip edge would be installed for drainage along the driveway.
Second. Discussion. Yes, Ms. Moreau.
I might as well start since I was the one that had all the questions. Technically, I agree that this property meets, or this project meets all of our requirements. Looking back on when we wrote this, you know, our intention of some of the things we write into the zoning sometimes cause we get things that kind of push our limits, shall we say. Having the one, I guess, the biggest issue I have about this is it's far enough back. It's the overall size of the building being subordinate to, because we always say that the structures need to be subordinate. So like a two-car garage, which would be a smaller structure with an apartment over it, would probably have those requirements that in our minds when we thought of somebody building something like this, when we drafted all this and enacted it, was what we were intending. So this being just inches lower, I guess, you know, we didn't put any verbiage into it to say how much lower the structure had to be. We just wanted it to be lower. So you can see I'm internally frustrated. I don't have any answers. These are the things that are in my head going around as far as I'm glad it's 749 square feet. I do have a concern, and I don't think we have any ability to actually stop them from, at least not today, from doing any further expansion and making this like a full nother residence that takes over the whole second floor. That would be a concern in the future for me, where the ADU law was not put in place for that kind of a structure. So I am a little bit torn, and I would be interested in hearing what other board members' concerns or things are about it.
Other comments? So, yeah, Mr. Tillman.
I guess it is shoehorning things in, and I went back and looked at Jim Vera's plan, and it just seems like where you're so close to the 20% coverage, maybe this is a time where you do need a survey. You know, a slight shift could make a difference, one way or the other. You might be.
We paid for a survey.
I think, no, comments are over.
I mean, the plan, it's not called a survey, it's called a monumentation sketch, I believe. And it says it's not even, it is what it is, you know, and you guys, the engineers looked at it, they accepted it, and for all I know, it's fine, but it's really close. And I don't see an area on Jim's plan. So maybe I missed it.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, what we could do to address your concern is make that a stipulation.
That's what I'm leading up to. That's what I'm leading up to.
If it hits the mark, it hits the mark. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So that's a possibility to address your concern.
That's what I'm leading up to.
Okay. Other comments? So I actually didn't pick this up until the Harveys mentioned this, but and Beth, you mentioned this as well. I'm having trouble with the common utility laundry. It's 40 feet away from the main structure. You can call it common, but there's nothing common to it. If it were attached to the main building, then I would say, yep, that's common. So in my mind, this is in fact part of the ADU, because it also has a direct stairway to this. And so I would be interested in potentially having a stipulation that remain vacant space, not a utility space, if we were to go forward.
Can we respond to that?
I'm sorry, you can't, no. And I wished I had brought it up before, and I didn't, but given where we're at.
The architect said that it was.
All I'm doing is interpreting what the documents that have been submitted. And so this is a tough one for me too, Ms. Moreau, because it is on the edge, but the reality is it is below every specification of our ordinance. So I can't point to anything in the ADU ordinance to deny it. But what I can do is, in my mind, that in fact is part of the ADU. And we could easily take that away to be clear that the ADU is less than 750 square feet. Mr. Chalman?
I've got a question, and this goes to just the level of my inexperience. How do you measure the square footage of the ADU itself? It's not the overall building, it's just the residential portion?
It
Right.
is,
Which-
yeah, the interior.
Why
and
Beth's
it's-
bringing up that
It's
point?
primarily the interior space. It is the interior space, and it has to be living space.
So if somebody proposed a 500 square foot apartment with a 50,000 square foot addition attached to it, that theoretically would be I realize it's a crazy example.
No, I mean, can I respond?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. I mean, I think this is just, it's the ordinance as written does not really provide additional guidance for a situation like this where you have an accessory building being constructed that has a small portion of it as the ADU. And so we did try, when we crafted the ordinance originally, I think we did look at, trying to limit the overall size of the ADU, but not necessarily the overall size of the building that contained that ADU.
Because,
Yeah, go ahead.
gross floor area, as that's defined, as I understand gross floor area, it's a building's gross floor area, not, it doesn't say the ADU's gross floor area, it says the gross floor area. So, again.
I'm sorry, what are you referring to, Mr.
I'm looking in
In the ordinance?
Yeah, in the ordinance.
Oh, okay. Let me look at that section.
10/8/14/52. It's page 8.5, which is around about 184.
Right, and then we define the gross floor area in the ordinance as well. And let me look that up. I think it's living space. While I look that up, I don't know if other people have questions.
While Ms. Walker's looking at that, other questions or comments? Mr. Gamester?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. I think that they've met almost everything, and I think that it's, my gut feeling is that it's it's not subordinate enough. It's close. But, and I probably could be swayed to vote for it if it was just based on the subordination and that argument, but I don't like the common utility room. I think it's very clever. I think it's a fantastic idea, but it's the separation to the main structure that's really getting it to me, and the fact that the entrance to the unit is the utility, the laundry room or the common laundry room, whatever it may be. If it was separated, if it was done the workshop end, I think, I would probably have a tough time saying everything I just said. So I think if they were, if they wanted to stick with 749 square feet, but and then they were thinking of eliminating the common area that's the laundry room, I think that maybe there'd be a little more opportunity to shrink the building just a teeny bit. In which case, I think it would fly with passing colors, at least from my perspective.
But it's a common area
Excuse me.
storage area.
Other comments from the board? Julia, did you find an answer?
Yeah, I mean, at my quick glance at the ordinance, and I need to keep looking, but I think you're right, Mr. Chalman, that we don't in that section, we don't distinguish living area from gross floor area, meaning that the 750 square feet is actually the gross floor area.
Right. So, just another question.
Right, go ahead.
Just a question. If you wanted to propose a garage, no residential component to it, how would that be construed? What's allowed? Is there a footprint?
Oh, no, we don't have maximum footprints on accessory buildings.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, so it is, I mean, really, this gross floor area is supposed to be the actual part that is the DADU. It's just that in this case, and we've had this situation in other cases, it's hard to actually distinguish where that boundary ends.
We've had several where something similar where they've created a building that's bigger, not quite like this, but bigger, and some of it was for storage. But it was very clear that they were within the 750 square feet of what we've interpreted as living space for the ADU.
Well, I think the way it's worded, the way I read it, now I'm new compared to everybody else pretty much on the board, I think you've got a 750 square foot limitation for gross floor area, which is the size of a building, if it has a residential component.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So if it didn't, then that criteria wouldn't pertain, because it could be like a garage.
I understand what you're saying. I think the planning department staff has always felt that this is, and we've had discussions on the board previously, that this is specific to the portion of the building that is the DADU. That's the gross floor area that we're referencing, and not the entire building.
Okay, well, I see what you're saying. I don't think it's worded that way, but.
Yeah, and it may be that the wording needs to be tightened in that ordinance, but from the get-go, of the 33 ADUs that this board has reviewed in the last 3 years, that 750 square feet in the board's mind has been associated with the living area of the ADU, not the building area.
Is there an example, Dexter, of something like this one that had a small residential component?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, one that comes to mind is Artwell Ave, where there was a garage constructed, and the ADU was a portion of that, and the board restricted the ADU just to that 750 square feet in the approval as well. They reiterated that it couldn't expand anywhere else in the building. It had to be limited to that, just that 750 square feet.
The square footage, I mean, the footprint, how was the footprint a lot larger than?
Yeah,
It was significantly larger.
It was two or three. It was a three car garage.
Yeah, it was a three bay garage. It was a big structure.
So there's one of two possibilities here. I've read it wrong, or maybe there was a bad precedent set. And I'm happy to. It does seem like it's a lot for the property. It may just make it, depending again back on the actual size of the lot.
Other comments? Mr. Clark.
Yeah, excuse me, thank you. I would just kind of echo the common space as well. But the other thing I kind of wrestled with this one was just the whole clearly subordinate, that architecturally consistent. You know, that's a beautiful house there on Middle Road, and I congratulate you on that one. Beautiful New Englander. I think if this building had more of that architectural character, or even a barn feel, I think it would really, you know, there's plenty of examples in Portsmouth where there's giant barns behind a house. But that's, you know, that is, in this, it is a modern barn, if you will, but I think it does take away from that 1900s character. So I'm kind of wrestling a little bit with some of those stipulations, or requirements rather, so.
Are there questions or other comments?
How about, Mr. Chair, I amend our motion, if I might, and ask the second if they will go along with me, that we, on top of adding the gravel drip edge, that we also require a full detailed survey with confirmation of building coverage for the planning department, and that we also require that the laundry room remain empty storage space and not actual heated space.
And the only other stipulations, Ms. Moreau, I'd add to that is what Mr. Pizzula pointed out is the sewer pipe of 6 inches.
Yeah, but I think that's already built into our.
Is that
It
built in?
was 6 inches, and also the water line.
Do we need stipulations on that, or is that?
I think it would be good to add
Yeah.
it. so
Okay.
it gets clarified.
And
I would be happy to add that.
And
as
the
well.
last one, since the plan didn't show this, is 1 metered water service, because right now the plan does not show that.
Okay.
So those are the other stipulations. So there's,
So add all of the utilities meet
you have,
Mr. Pizzula's comment?
yep.
DPW requirements.
Okay.
So I think you have a total of 5 stipulations.
Utilities.
Right, sewer pipe of 6 inches, drip edge, 1 metered water service, the elimination of the common utility laundry space, that should be left vacant, and a formal survey to verify
Right,
lot
and-
coverage.
And the gravel drip edge.
Yeah, the gravel coverage, so I think that's 5. So, Mr.
Second.
Gamester, you were the seconder, so we have a revised motion on the floor. Further discussion? Yes, Ms. Moreau?
I will be voting for it, but I'm still unhappy with the overall size, but unfortunately, there's not much I can do about that.
Yeah,
So-
me too. Other, Yeah, Mr. Harris,
I
Mr.
just want to support Ms. Monroe, that, yeah, it says subordinate, and it's clearly the same, about the same. Subordinate, there's no specification as to what subordinate is size-wise. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, in my mind, the only, I wish they hadn't pushed the edge, but they're within the ordinance. I think the saving grace is that it's behind the property and separated. I wish our ordinance was a little bit stronger, because Mr. Clark was spot on. We have a lot of residents in Portsmouth with barns that are bigger than the property. And if this in fact read like a barn, I think it would be a heck of a lot easier, in my mind, to support it. But I have to support it because of how our ordinance is written, so. Any final comments before I call the motion?
I'm
Mr.
just going
Chairman?
to explain, I want to explain I'm not going to support it. I feel, maybe I'm a strict constructionist. I don't feel it fits the ordinance the way the ordinance is written, and I think there are some opportunities to make some modifications, but I know I'm in the minority, so go ahead and call the vote.
I'll call the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Two, motion?
You might need to do,
might not have
might need to do a roll.
I'm sorry.
Why don't you do a
We
roll
two-
call, Mr.
Do
Chairman?
a roll call, please.
This isn't
I
new,
have to remember
Julia, this
everything.
isn't new.
All right, I'm sorry. Vice Chair Moreau.
Yes.
Okay. Counselor Whalen.
No.
Mr. Clark.
No.
Mr. Chelman.
No.
Mr.
Harris?
Gamester.
Yes.
And Mr. Harris.
No.
City Manager Conard.
Yes.
Mr. Pizzullo?
And Mr. Pizzullo.
Yes.
And Chairman Light.
Yes, the motion passes 5-4. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Board, for
I think I'll add that to our list.
your insightful discussions. Item C. Request of the Fritz Family Revocable Living Trust owner for property located at 0 Patricia Drive, and also item D. The applicant has requested a postponement to their next meeting. If I could have a motion to postpone.
So
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Item 4, public hearings, city council referrals. Item A, request of David Higgins and Julia Higgins, owners for the restoration of involuntary merged lots at 344 Aldridge Road. The applicant has requested a postponement. If I could have a motion to postpone to the July meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item B, the request of Marcy Sherman, owner for the restoration of involuntary merged lots at 635 Lincoln Avenue. This applicant has withdrawn her request, so no vote is needed.
Sorry, that was a late file.
As a late file.
Or late discovery.
And item C, the requestants of Vincent Zigarelio and Monica Abruzier, owners for the restoration of involuntary merged lots at 135 Thaxter Road, for the pre-merger status pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 674:39-AA. Said property shown on Assessor's Map 166, Lot 15, and lies within the single residence B district. We have the city assessor here that she, I think, is
There might
Oh.
be people who want to present for this. I don't know.
oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Do we have?
Mr. Chair, I
I'm
have to
sorry.
recuse
Okay,
myself.
let the record show, Mr. Gamester. I'm sorry, Roseanne. Do we have anyone here to present this request?
Hold on. See if there's anyone on Zoom. I don't see anyone on Zoom for this.
Okay, so there's no one here, so the city assessor can come up and give us her summary and wisdom.
Well, it's nice to finally meet everybody.
Yes, it is.
And it actually feels very
I'm
good to
sorry
be in person.
to interrupt.
Oh,
I
sorry.
did receive a very late email from Mr. Zingariello requesting to postpone to the next meeting. So it's the board's decision if they would like to. Because Roseanne made the effort to be here.
I'm sorry, Roseanne.
I just
That's
literally
okay.
just got the email at 6 o'clock. So the board can proceed, or they can decide if they want to hear.
The good news is it's only 8:15 and not
Right.
not 11:15.
That's true.
I mean, I'd be inclined, given the request that came in, that we postpone.
Nope, that's fine. Not a problem.
All right, so if I give a motion to postpone.
Move to postpone.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Sorry, Rosanna, thank you. Item 5, other business. Item A, notification of separation of contiguous lots at 67 and 69 Porpoise Way. Juliet, do you have something for us on that?
This is just an information item that's in your packet. I'm required to notify you when we unmerge lots in Porpoise Way, in Atlantic Heights. So it's just a notification for your information.
Great. And item B, report on accessory dwelling unit approvals. Ms. Walker?
Yeah, and this was a previous request, I believe from the chair, to provide a summary, and I'm happy to do this on an annual basis. It just gives you an idea of the number of accessory dwelling units that we have processed since we adopted the ordinance. Many of them have been approved. A few of them have not actually proceeded. And we have made some revisions to the zoning ordinance over time, including adding a limitation on how long it lasts. So a few of these are sort of going to be there forever, unfortunately, until somebody decides to act on them. But the rest of, have an expiration date if they're not acted on. And I think tonight we heard a few more potential revisions. So,
Yeah.
but overall, I think in terms of its original intent, which was to provide this option for property owners and also to make it reasonable for the neighborhood context, I think in my eyes, I think we've been fairly successful on that front. So.
Any comments on? Yeah, I'd agree. Though I think it's important that we update this annually. I think it tells a mixed picture. There was real concern, I think, when the board originally looked at this in 2016, that there would be an overwhelming number of ADUs coming before us, which is why I think we were pretty aggressive in how we, I thought, had fairly robust ordinance and with strict requirements. I think it has served its purpose well, although I think it's always open for revisions. Part of me, since this was intended by the state to increase the number of housing units, I wish this was a longer list, but I'm happy that we've pretty much been consistent with how we've interpreted the ordinance, and you look at this and you can see that demonstrated. So I think overall I've been happy with how this board and prior boards have dealt with this, and city staff. Yes, Ms. Moreau?
I just like to make a comment because for those that are newer, being part of that group that actually looked at the state law and actually had to draft this ordinance, we looked really hard at everything, and we knew that there were going to need to be changes, which is why we actually had the option to take the approval of these and give them to a different board and not take them ourselves. We personally kept it so that we could keep an eye on things like this, so when something doesn't come in that wasn't what maybe we mentally intended it to be, we could then act pretty quickly and try to make adjustments so that it didn't go forward. And we've already done that several times, but I think we're still sort of in those infancy years where we really truly learn when somebody's going to push something. So any comments I say that anyone has that they see in the ordinance should bring those to Ms. Walker, and she'd be happy, I'm sure, to keep helping us draft that so that we perfect it to a point that makes us all really happy.
Yeah, and what will be interesting to see if these, particularly ones that were approved in 2019, actually get built out or not. I mean, there's more to the story, Mr. Chalmers.
Oh, yeah.
The idea of accessory dwelling units is a fabulous idea. It's a very definite positive, and it's been a part of many ordinances I've worked on. I think one of the problems that I saw tonight is when you combine that concept with perhaps a different concept, and that maybe shows the idea of maybe having a conversation about the ordinance and how maybe the ordinance, the wording can be fine-tuned a little bit, because if you're proposing a barn, and historically some barns didn't have residential components to them, but it's easily enough defined much more explicitly so that, I'll use the same term, strict constructionists such as myself could look at it and say, yep, it conforms, and go forward with it. But in terms of the general concept, accessory dwelling units are a very good idea.
Agreed. Anything else? Anything else to come before the board this
We
evening?
have one
We
final
do.
item. Yep, it's the extension request for the 32 Monteith Street. There's no presentation as part of that. I don't know, and although I did see someone stand up, if you want to, you can address the board, seeing as you came tonight, which is great. Thank you.
Everybody here. So, my name is Chuck Dudas. I'm the homeowner at 32 Monteith Street, and we are requesting a one-year extension on the wetlands CUP due to cost increases and contractor availability, really.
Great. Okay, thank you. So if I get a motion to extend for 1 year.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now, is there anything else before I ask for a motion for adjournment?
Oh, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Welcome back. See you in July.
Back in action. Where it's so much easier to have a discussion.
Let's vote on that.